So let's go ahead and let's look at the hip joint. If we zoom in here, we can see that there's basically two bones that make up the hip. They are your pelvis. There's three bones that fuse together that make up your pelvis. And then there is your femur. And if we got rid of the femur and we looked really closely, we could see that that's a real deep ball and socket joint. So inherently, your hip has a ton of stability built into it. If we contrast that to a shoulder, we look up here to shoulder joint, there is a really shallow ball and socket joint that makes up your shoulder. And if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, that makes sense. Our shoulders were meant to climb and swing from stuff, and our hips were meant for walking, right? We're bipedal animals. So we want a lot of stability in that structure. Next thing I like to show people is all of the ligaments that make up that keep our hip in that ball and socket joint. There are a bunch of them. They come in layers, but they're really small, right? And that's part of it is because there's already a lot of good inherent stability in that hip. So you can have a torn ligament in your hip, but it's not very common. Next, we'll go through and we'll show everybody the muscles that surround your hip. So we'll add in all the layers, and let's just take a moment to appreciate that there are 7 layers of muscles that move your hip around, and start to appreciate that your pelvis and your femur are really, really closely connected, and your pelvis and your low back are really closely connected. So let's keep adding in some muscles through here. We can see that we have muscles that connect your pelvis to your femur in a couple of different ways, okay, and go from kind of that pubic bone. Those are your adductors. That's when somebody pulls a groin. That's usually what that one is. And we continue to add on layer and layer and layer of muscle until we get to that final layer where you can see we have these big primary movers, right? We have your glutes. We have, this is one of my favorite structures. It's called your iliotibial band, and that basically connects your hip to your knee and helps us in things like walking and running. So there's a lot of anatomy that goes on around a hip. And just for fun, we'll take away the muscles and I'll show you the nerves. Okay. Let's see. We'll go with the simplest layer. So the nerves that start in your spinal cord, let's see if we can get rid of the sacrum here. Okay, all those nerves that start in your spinal cord and they exit out, they run through your pelvis and then around your hip. Okay? And people who have sciatic pain that goes down the back of their leg, sometimes it's because, and this part is always cool to show people, when we add in those muscles, they sit right on top of that nerve. Okay, so that's everyone's favorite, piriformis. It gets blamed for a lot of things, but it sits right on top of that sciatic nerve. And if it's tight there, and a lot of things will tighten up when they're doing a job they're not supposed to do, like your primary mover, like your glute is weak, it can tighten up, and then it can cause pressure on that nerve, and that can cause pain down the leg. So I always like to show everybody kind of the anatomy because I think it helps you stay compliant with your plan of care to understand and appreciate, like, there's a bunch of structures involved in this. You are a whole body organism, and it's really important to understand all of that. So there's my model without a sacrum. But thank you for your time and your attention. If you have any questions, let me know. I appreciate you. Keep moving and keep getting better every day.